So I'm just going to go over task 21 here, the cycle shop thing. So first of all, you had to do a data dictionary for this bike table. Data dictionaries should be easy by now. This is mainly just to drum into your head the design before implementation, and also the new SQL data types that you need to learn. So we're not given a great deal of information about this, so I've made a few assumptions as I've done mine. I can't remember where I stole this question from. But what have we got here? So serial number as a primary key, fairly obviously. I have a feeling this is taken from an N5 exam or something, actually. As a primary key, it's got to be text, so varchar. The longest serial number there I can see is 9, so I've set aside 9 characters for it, but I could say more if I had more data. I wouldn't have to make such an assumption. You could put it a little higher. Required, yeah, it's a primary key. And then validation, I actually took the time to count a couple of these, and some are 8, some are 9, so I've said it has to be 8 or 9 characters. That might be absolute nonsense, but I'll go with it for now. You don't have to have done exactly that. Make varchar, and I just picked 50. I'm kind of plucking that out there. I suspect there aren't any makes that are nearly as long as that. But 50, and I thought required. You might disagree, but it seems like you'd probably want the make. Same thing for model, I did. Type, varchar, and I just assumed these were the only types you could get. So I went for a size of 8, which is enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, it is enough. I thought I'd miscounted there. It's enough for mountain. And do you need the type? I decided no, but you might disagree with me. And that's a fairly obvious restricted choice opportunity there. Gears. Do you really get bikes with 27 gears? Man. Anyway, it's int. So whole numbers, integers. I thought maybe not required again, but you might disagree. And I thought I was begging for a range check. Maybe a restricted choice would be more appropriate. I don't know. I'm assuming you can't just get like random amounts of gears on a bike, but I know nothing about them really. And then employee number, slightly weird one. I thought this would make sense to be a foreign key linking to some employees. What the hell does it even mean? Employee number? What did the employee do? I don't know. But I would accept that as a foreign key certainly. But we've got very limited information. It's an integer fairly obviously, so we don't need size again. Is an employee number required? I don't know. I don't have a clue about the scenario, nor do you clearly. That kind of depends whether depends on the relationship participation. Does every bike have to be linked to an employee? If not, then it's not required. And there's optional participation. Anyway, if so, look up from employee table, I guess I would call it. Okay, so moving on to use MariaDB to create the bike table. Now, I actually haven't even bothered to do that, but I have prepared some code for it. That is not it. I was not prepared enough. Now, actually, let's make that a bit easier to read. It would be sensible. So, remember, you have to actually, I'm not saying this just to alarm you, but you have to be able to write this out in an exam. All this sort of stuff. So, create table, and then the name of the table, bike. And then your brackets, and a semicolon after them. Our first one, serial number, varchar, you put in brackets after any varchar, what size it's going to be. And then you can list various other settings for the various constraints. So it's going to be a primary key. It's required, so not null. Excuse me. And then for the exam, all you would have to do for any validation is you write check, and then in brackets you write what you're going to check for that. So when something's input to it, what are you checking? You're checking that length of the serial number field is equal to 8, or length serial number equals to 9. Now yours might be different, obviously, if you didn't go for the same thing as me there. But that's how you do it in the exam. Don't forget a little comma. I think it'd be pretty harsh if they took a mark off in the exam for forgetting a comma, but as far as implementing it goes, don't forget the comma. Make varchar 50 and it's required, so not null. Same for model. Type. Now, see just the way Notepad++, identifies this as a keyword. I wouldn't be surprised, I haven't tried it, I wouldn't be surprised if MySQL didn't like us putting type as a field name, an attribute name. It might be like a reserved word, it might cause confusion. But anyway, we'll go with type for now. Varchar 8, and then to do restricted choice, it's just check, and then we list what's acceptable. Type has to equal road or this, blah blah blah. Then we've got gears, it's an int, and again check, and here's where we put. So we've actually got all three types of check here, that's good. We've got length, restricted choice, and range. You can see how they all work just with that check keyword. And then employee number int, and then if there is a foreign key, if employee number is a foreign key, I've just put this in just to show you, to remind you, foreign key, and then in brackets the name of the foreign key in this table, references, and then the name of the other table. We've no idea, I'm just deciding one's called employee, and the name of the field in that is linking. And you can also put in the on whatever it is, on delete cascade and on update cascade. You can list it after, but you wouldn't need to do that in an exam. Now, that's all well and good if we've got a more recent version of MySQL that we're working on, but we don't. So to actually do these checks in our version, if you're trying to implement them, you would get rid of that, for example. You wouldn't have the check bit, and you would go down here, and after you'd created the table, you would put this in. So remember, this is just copied and pasted. Trigger, you don't need to do this in the exam or anything, it's just how we do it in our version. I've just said, called it validate serial number on insert, when we try to insert something into bike, and it's just checking if the length of the new serial number doesn't equal 8 and it doesn't equal 9. There are other ways you could write that condition. Then here's the error message, and then I've just copied and pasted it and did one for update rather than insert. Oh god, but I didn't, did I? That's because I didn't try it. Update. Okay. Other than those two bits that now say update, that's the exact same. So having created the table, we put that and that in, and that sets up these triggers. And I've got similar things for type. So here's a restricted choice. Again, we've got insert before insert and update before, because I was too lazy to actually try it out, before update. Okay, it's the exact same, except I've changed the message text to a really lazy one there, and now I'm checking if it's not road, and if it's not classic, and if it's not mountain, then throw an error. And finally, validating the gears. Again, I've not done that. So a range check in the same way. So if it's less than 1 or it's bigger than 27, then we display a poorly typed error message. Okay, Sut being Rambky. Good grief, Hill. Okay, there you go. And moving on to the last little thing, a very quick one. Write the SQL which would delete the bike table. Very easy, but you have to do this in an exam. You have to get it exactly right because it's very easy. It is, of course, drop table bike. People quite often forget the table, I think. The drop table bike. Semicolon. Okay, hope that helped. See ya.